All right, we're just going to give everyone a few minutes before we start. If you're joining us, go ahead, let us know where you're from in the chat section.
Very much live.
Yes, we are 40 seconds in.
Right. It's like the lobby of that the meeting. You're waiting for everybody to join on Teams. Like, oh yeah, how's the weather?
Awkward. All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us once again. I hope everyone is having a great week. Today, Justin and I are going to discuss with our guest speaker, Samuel, and his experience working as an owner user as they are transitioning to a new data management database and the things you need to consider to get the most from your own programs. We would really like this live stream to be informal and a chat with like-minded folks in asset integrity. We are, of course, live. Myself and Samuel are actually in Georgia attending the Connected Plant Conference, where we've had many discussions and a presentation on the very topic we're discussing today. I think Floyd and Samuel did a great job, and that is why we asked him to also be a part of this live stream. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the session. We would love y'all's engagement on this topic. So please jump in, talk, send us your questions. All right, so let's go ahead and kick off with some short introductions. I am Angela Saldivar, Antea's Asset Integrity and Risk-Based Inspection Specialist. I've been in the industry for over 10 years and in asset integrity. I have worked in many different platforms and even spreadsheets as well. I've been a part of several implementation projects from start to finish and also a part of managing assets within those platforms. I've been with Antea for about a year now, and I'm very pleased with Antea and the people and the company. Let's go ahead, Justin. Why don't you let everyone know who you are and what you do with Cognizance?
Sure. Good morning, and Angela, Samuel. It's going to be fun today. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Justin Daarud. I work with a company called Cognascent Consulting. We do process safety management as well as asset integrity consulting services. So we help owner operators with their integrity programs and their process safety programs. I've been doing it for about 15 years. I'm a mechanical engineer, mechanical integrity type of guy, and here I am chatting with these fine folks. And I'm as a quick aside, I'm really excited to have Samuel with us because he comes from a different background and he'll introduce himself, but he's got a lot of great things to say. We kind of talked a little bit before we got started. So I'm going to essentially sit back and let Samuel kind of give us some good words.
Thanks so much, Justin. Samuel, you're up.
Thanks for having me, guys. I always love talking about this kind of stuff. So a little bit about me: I'm a materials engineer by degree and trade, but through the years I found myself working more on the mechanical integrity and reliability side. So I started out at an oil major formerly, and worked through some of their data transitions into new software, and learned a lot about the do's and don'ts there. And then I started working for Lotte Chemical over at Westlake, Louisiana, a few years or 1 year ago. And I've been helping them with their data transformation and implementing their mechanical integrity program. So I definitely got to see some interesting aspects from the owner operator in these software choices.
Thanks so much, Samuel. So we are discussing when and how to update your inspection data management system. The first thing that comes to mind when discussing this is the hurdles that are associated with this specific topic. Justin, can you kick us off with how you identify when you need to start this transition and consider a new software?
Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot of different things that may push you towards considering a new software, a new inspection database, a new asset integrity tool in one shape or another. You may have transitions in personnel and management philosophy that might push you towards a direction where the company should go. For instance, data visualization, future, etc. You may have a situation where you have an older software that you've been using for a while, but it's kind of seen its years. It's getting long in the teeth, and you might want to transition to something else, or the software provider might call you up and say, hey, we're not supporting the software anymore. And that kind of pushes you as an owner user to think about, hey, there might be other avenues we want to go. What other features are we missing? So let's look out into the marketplace and see what's available. Yeah.
Sammy, you think you can add to that a little bit?
Yeah.
With your experience?
So when my former employer was looking at other softwares, one of the main use cases, or the main drivers, was the fact that they had several different databases for several different types of data that all related to each other. So there's the obvious issues of data integrity. If you transition from one database to another database to another database, and you have different data entry people on those databases, it's very easy to get mistakes and run down the data integrity, where you just have something completely different than what was intended. And so there was the obvious case of lack of integration. So by having one software that was doing all of the things that those other three softwares was doing, they were saving money on both the software licensing and the headcount of all the different data entry people. So there was the clear obvious case there, as far as why they wanted to make that transition. Was the transition successful? As I said, I learned a lot of the do's and don'ts of it. And at Lotte, the key things was really, we needed an IDMS system, and the current software that we had was, we could build an IDMS with them, or we could get something out of the box. And that's what we ultimately went with, is getting something out of the box that would do what we needed to do. And and as an owner operator, when we were selecting the software, we looked for a few different key things. So the first step was obviously flexibility. We needed the IDMS software to do what we needed to do in the way that Lotte wanted to do it. Not every user is the same, so they're going to have different requirements, different values, different things they find important. So it's important that the software has that flexibility to express the values of the owner operator. So one example is I'm chemicals industry right now. And so with risk-based inspection, API 581 is very tailored towards refining applications. So how do I manage the more chemical specific side of things? The software needs to be able to allow me to customize some of the calculations in 581 to be more chemicals application specific. And some softwares were it's either 581, or you go all the way with your own custom solution, which would have been very, very expensive and very time consuming. But other softwares were able to say, oh, that's just changing a few variables, adding one little calculator here or there, and it is no big deal. So having that flexibility is very important. And then the other aspect that we looked for was integration. So we wanted our IDMS to be integrated into our CMMS, which was SAP, which Lotte had selected and implemented during the same time we were selecting the IDMS software. So with that, we want to be able to push work orders, receive work orders, and be able to track the financials of it. Which SAP, it's a great financial software, but it doesn't make for a great IDMS system. So that's why we had the need for a unique IDMS system. But having that integration was very important, and being able to integrate into our data historian was also important to us, because in the future we would like to implement integrity operating windows. So having that integration is very key. One software cannot do it all, but the right software is going to integrate in the right places. And the last thing we were looked for was growth. So, is the software company going to be able to provide support as the company grows? So Lotte has plans to grow in the United States. So is the software company going to be able to support us through that growth? Are we going to be having one site support and then the other sites have a lack of support? And then if we take some of the programs globally, then are they going to be able to support 30 different sites as opposed to just one site? And that growth and scalability was very important as well.
Thanks so much, Samuel. As an owner user, you have experienced many hurdles that you've had to overcome, and the steps that need to happen with transitioning into a new software. What steps do you feel like you have taken to ensure a smooth transition for the facility and the people?
So the first step, of course, is get the right people in the right place. You can't just leave in IDMS software up to an IT person who has no stake in the actual inspection data. IT is going to select what is good for IT, not necessarily what is good for the business or the application. And you also can't just have some project manager or some person that's only tangentially related to the actual end user managing or selecting the software and managing the transition, because you need the end user there, because the end user is ultimately going to be the person inputting the data, the person utilizing the data, and getting the use out of the software. Having an end user there is very, very important, whether or not they're the lead in the project manager, or whether or not they are just very strongly tied. You got to have the right people involved, and that was one of the mistakes that my previous company had. And so to all the people, all the end users that may be on this call with that current software, good luck. I saw that software and I was very glad to not have to use it. So yeah, and getting the right people in the right place, that Lotte, that was essentially why they recruited me. And so not to toot my own horn, that was me there, the right person in the right place. So the next step, once you have the right people in the right place, they're going to know what they're looking for in a software. And so you have to reach out to software companies, and some software companies may be a little bit more aggressive and reach out to you. But uh, getting that information from the software, knowing their capabilities, and getting demonstrations. So one thing I would urge other owner operators looking to make this transition is get those demos, but try to get those demos with real data. You can, a software company can easily scrub the data, so you're not looking at anything proprietary, confidential, but see those features as they actually work with real information. Because there were several companies that I asked for those demos, and they either flat out refused. And I told them, I was like, well, I can't do anything if you can't show me the feature truly in action instead of a carefully curated demonstration. And some companies, they got a little cocky, and they tried to show me the feature, and then I could very clearly see that it did not work. So if I told them, I was like, well, you got to fix this feature. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. Oh, well, show me a little bit of different data. They come back the next day, and the feature still wouldn't work. You'd think that they'd test these things out ahead of time, but I really got to see how the software worked, and that was very, very critical in my final selection of the software. And then, of course, cost is a huge deal as well. So a software can have everything you want, but if it costs $1 million and your budget's $100,000, well, you can't really buy it. But hopefully, the software company can work with you on scalability and what's actually necessary to try and get that. And that's also key there with flexibility. Is the software flexible? Then the next step is once you select the software, it's all about data integrity at that point. Whether you're transitioning from an old software or multiple old softwares, or you are starting from scratch like I was, uh, data integrity is absolutely paramount. You have to make sure that all the data is right, because if the tags are wrong, then integration goes out the window. If the data is wrong, you could think some vessel's failing when it's actually another vessel that's failing. So it's very, very important. So have your inspectors look at it, have your RBI people look at it, have your reliability people look at it, have your maintenance people look at it, have your SAP or whatever CMMS software you have, those people look at it. And if you don't have a big team, get the right people in the right place to make sure that that data has integrity. And that is going to be the key thing. And you're going to have the longest window is going to be installation and getting the data in the software. So that's going to take anywhere, depending on what data you have, anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 months. And if it's a really really big facility or owner operator like my previous job, it was about 2 years. And the next step after that, once you got the software, it's all implemented. You probably still have the heritage systems in place, so that way people can still use it, do their job, and do what's necessary. But then you got to train all the people on it, and this is where you really see, did you take the end user into account? Because they're gonna see that software, and they're gonna be trained up on it. They're either gonna say, oh well, this doesn't do exactly what I needed to do, or or they don't like the user interface, or they don't like something about the software. It's like, that's why it's important to involve the end user. But you have to train them to make sure that they operate the software properly. The correct people are or setting up your security to where the correct people are editing or viewing the data. And then through that training step, and this one can take a really long time depending on the size of your organization. So for Lotte, it's probably not going to take very long because we got like 4 people, so it won't take that long to train them. But my previous job had hundreds of people, so that's a big challenge that they're still working on. And then you have your software, and then you can evaluate whether it's doing what you need it to do, and that's pretty easy, because if it's not doing what it needs to do, people will raise hell. So
Yeah,
That's a very good point. Thank you, Samuel. Go ahead,
yeah.
Justin.
thank you.
I'm gonna jump in as the consultant to kind of summarize all the great stuff that Samuel was saying. It really comes down to, you have to extract the right value with the right people with the right skill set. And if you're able to do that with the right data, I mean, obviously life is so much easier from an owner operator's perspective, as well as a consultant that comes in and helps them, solve some problems. So thanks, Samuel. That was really insightful.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks so much, Samuel. I was going to ask about do's and don'ts, but I think we've covered quite a bit of that. So we'll probably, touch base on that in the webinar. But maybe we can go ahead and touch on how can we get leadership to see the value. Samuel, that's one of those big issues that you see as an owner user, is getting your leadership team to see the value.
So getting the leadership team to see the value in it, the value of an IDMS system and the value of integration and proper data is very obvious to the end user, but to management is probably not as obvious because they're a little bit removed from the actual work. And so you have to tailor what you are presenting to the values of the organization. So if they very much value costs, you can very easily present a business case. Oh, it costs this much to transition to this software, and will save this much money. So whether it's a headcount reduction, less data clerks required, or efficiency, the people are able to do their job in a quicker time. It's very easy to show the return on investment there. And or compliance, if you don't have an IDMS, and you want to make sure that what you present to auditors as far as your compliance is right, whether and it's presenting the right overdue and due inspections, and all the data that you need associated with that. If compliance is important to them, which it should be important to everybody, but it's not always the case with owner operators. So if they want that, it's very easy to present a case about getting up to compliance. And sometimes one barrier with management especially is the sunken cost fallacy. So if they're like, well, we invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into this software, why would we go to this next software? It's like, well, it's a lot cheaper to cut the ties and get a cheaper software that works, as opposed to spending however much money they were spending on a more expensive software that does not necessarily work. So it's very very difficult to convince management of the sunken cost fallacy, but once they see it, it's very easy. They can easily see the value in going to a different system.
Thanks so much. Justin, you have anything to add before we close
I,
out?
Yeah, the sunken cost fallacy is always something, being from my side and doing integrity, outside of an owner operator, we go and we work with customers and they say, well, we have this tool. And it's like, okay, well, you haven't been updating it. The data is not correct. Why don't you consider using something that you'll actually use? And they go, well, we've already purchased this. So, and that's a roadblock, but you have to get past that and you have to think, how do we actually do what we want to do, which is compliance. We want safety, we want reliability, and we want to actually get value out of what we're doing. So it's getting over that hurdle, which can be difficult, but it's also a really, it can work out really well, just depending on the situation.
Thank y'all so much. So that's pretty much all we got for today. But if you'd like to learn more, you can go to www.antea.tech for more resources, and our team should be dropping the links to access this information in the comments section. So you may visit our podcast with a focus on technology and how it relates to any asset-intensive environment, such as plants, pipelines. And we'll also have a webinar discussing this topic we discussed today on June 1st. Myself and Justin. If you'd like to register for the webinar, you will see a link in the chat. If you can't attend, that's no problem, because we will have it on our website. We are very excited about this upcoming webinar. Very, very excited. Hope to see y'all there. Yes, I think so. And if you'd personally like to receive more information, also please send myself a direct message, Samuel, Justin. We're all here for you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Samuel. I really appreciate y'all being on this live stream today. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see y'all on our next live stream.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Samuel. Good job. Appreciate it, everyone. See you later.